What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik, and we are talking boxing today. Teofimo Lopez, Jaron Boots Ennis. This fight is in negotiations right now. If it does come to pass, it will be co-promoted by DAZN and Top Rank, which means that we're probably looking at a pay-per-view, even though I've seen some people out there saying that they don't think it should be a pay-per-view. But if it is, it would be streamed on DAZN and ESPN Plus. Now, I've talked about this fight, I've written about this fight on Forbes. For those of you guys who don't know, I am a Forbes contributor for combat sports and video games. So the link to my writing profile is in the description. I got to have start putting that in the videos from now on, because a lot of times I see people when there's interviews that I get, they're kind of a little bit shocked. They're like, because they're looking at the channel size and not realizing that, you know, there's a connection with the sport that goes, you know, deeper than just this YouTube channel. But this fight is one that I think is interesting because, as I wrote in the article today, I believe that the welterweight division is really, really in need of a spark. Usually, we're so used to the point where the boxing, you know, the welterweight division is like a glamour division. Usually, some of the best fighters, arguably the best fighters in the world, are in that division. But that's not where we are right now. Most of the champions, unless you are a hardcore boxing fan, you probably can't even name them. You know, you got Boots, Brian Norman Jr., and then it gets really, really thin from there down to the Mario Barrios. He's the WBA champion, and then you got Imanta Stanionis, and then you also, that's it. So it's Stanionis, Brian Norman Jr., Barrios, and Boots. So these are not big time names outside of like the core boxing circle, right? So Boots is in a situation where he's coming off a less than impressive victory over Karen Shakazian in his last fight. I got an opportunity to talk to Boots before that fight. I was a little concerned because it was a rematch. He won the first fight pretty convincingly. I knew it felt like he was probably going into that fight feeling like he had to be super impressive. And a lot of times that sets a fighter up for some failure or at least to look less than impressive, which is what we saw that happened. You got a guy in Shakazian who's looking at this fight like this is his Super Bowl. This is his biggest fight he's going to have. And you got someone like Ennis going into the fight who really has nothing to gain. If he dominates the guys, what everybody expected, if it looks tougher than it was supposed to, then everybody says he had a bad night, which is exactly what ended up happening. So immediately after that fight, Boots started talking about moving up to 154. And there was a brief conversation that he would be the one taking on Virgil Ortiz Jr., who I also had an opportunity to talk to. I'll put the links to both of those interviews in the description of this video. But that was supposed to be a fight that took place at February 22nd in Riyadh, in that amazing card that Turki Al-Sheikh is putting together next year in Saudi Arabia. But shortly after that, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn steps in, and he comes in and says, hey, basically, we don't think that it's the best idea for Boots to move up to 154. I agree. I think that keeping Boots at 147 and having him dominate there is probably what's best for his career, even if his eyes may be bigger than his stomach in this particular situation. Like, he's a dog. He wants great fights, but sometimes we got to go at the pace that's best for us, depending on whatever it is, especially in boxing. So he's going to stay at 147, at least for right now. So what does that mean? So that means since Brian Norman Jr. is supposed to be fighting Derek Cuevas, Conor Benn and Manny Pacquiao seem to be locked in on Mario Barrios, and Stanionis is supposed to be fighting Gigasov. So all of the other 147-pound champions seem to already have a fight. So now Boots needs to find a fight, and now here comes Teofimo. Teofimo's coming off a situation where he reportedly offered, and I do know for a fact, based off of things and people that I talked to, that there were talks between him and Devin Haney. Teofimo says he offered $2.4 million to Devin Haney. Devin Haney turned that down. And so now he needs a bigger fight. He's also someone who's been winning, but maybe not looking as impressive as people have expected in his most recent fights. So he needs a big fight. So it's kind of like this is coming together at a good time for both guys. Both guys need an opponent that will somewhat move the needle, and is in the best interest for their career at this time. Teofimo will be coming up a weight class from 140 to 147. He's already a 140-pound champion. He's the ring, recognized as the Ring Magazine champion at 140, and he'd be coming up to fight Ennis. I think that it's an interesting fight. So it's nothing that is official yet, but you know that it's definitely the rumors and the talks, the news is valid. Aram has already commented on it, on behalf of Top Rank. And even Teofimo has tweeted or made an X post at Boots and his dad, Bozy. So we know that there's some validity to these talks. So it's not premature, in my opinion, to talk about who wins this fight, when and if it actually takes place. So if you guys are not familiar with my Who Wins series, I do this for fights that are fantasy fights that we'll never see happen because the guys are from different eras, what have you. Or if it's a fight like Gervonta and Naoya Inoue, which I did a Who Wins fight about, or Who Wins video about, then we talk about maybe a potential fight that could happen but hasn't been signed. So that's kind of where Boots and Teofimo falls right now. So I break it down with 5 categories. That's the way I like to do it. And this is basically the way I see it. So we talk about power. I would say that if I'm giving an edge there, I'm going to give the edge to Boots. And I'm giving the edge to Boots for a few reasons, right? Obviously, he's the bigger man. So that's kind of the easier way to look at it. But even as a bigger man, if you look at just what he's done from a stoppage standpoint in his career, I mean, Boots has been a KO artist, if you really just want to be real about it. 33-0, 29 knockouts. Only 4 guys that he's faced has he not finished. And when you look at Teofimo, he's had some memorable knockouts, but he's 21-1 with 13 knockouts, and he's fighting at a lower weight class. He's a smaller guy already. I think it only makes sense that Boots is considered the guy that has the power edge here. Talk about speed. Now, both guys are pretty quick. They're both pretty quick. I think that in tight, I think that Teofimo's a little quicker in tight, but at distance, I think that Boots has a bit of an advantage. And I also think that Boots has an advantage when it comes to foot speed. Now, I do know that he will be a bigger guy in the ring. So it should be a bigger guy. So that could lead you to believe that he'll be a little slower, but I still think Boots gets a slight edge here when it comes to speed. Now, this next category I think is really important, and I think it's something that we've been seeing lately, and we maybe a little bit something to be concerned about. We're going to talk about defense. I got to give this edge to Teofimo. The regularity in which Boots was hit with the left hand by Shikazian in this rematch, and even some of the shots I saw him take against David Evanesian, I am truly concerned about Boots' defense, especially against elite level fighters. Make no mistake about it, Teofimo's an elite level fighter. He's an elite level talent. And I always tell people this, like, if you want to speak to someone from a like I would say layman's terms, when you're trying to like evaluate, when you're looking at a young fighter or prospect and you're trying to gauge like what their ceiling is, one of the first things I look at is how much do they get touched? How easy is it for middle, slightly above middle level fighters to touch them? Because you always have to assume that as the level goes up, they will get touched more. That's just usually the way. Now, can things happen? Can guys improve? And absolutely 100%. But you always got to look at that. And I find Boots to be too easy to touch at this point And so I got to give that edge to Teofimo. Teofimo's been down. He's been hit. Kambosos dropped him, which is crazy in itself. But I still have to give that edge defensively to Teofimo. Now let's talk about chin, because you're not going to dodge every punch. You're going to take some sometimes. And when you take some, how well are you going to take that shot? And for me, I would give that edge to Boots. Even though I've seen him touched, I've never seen him look as though he was hurt, and definitely not going down and that sort of thing. I've seen Teofimo swollen down. History tells me I got to give that edge to Boots. Boxing acumen, defense, accuracy, all of that is plugged in there. Poise. I got to go with Teofimo on this one, because I see Boots seemingly in firefights kind of losing his technique. That's where he gets hit, especially with the left hand. And overall boxing acumen, I'm going to give Teofimo the edge. I don't think it's a blowout, but I do give him an edge. Intangibles. This is a lot of things. This is in-ring IQ. This is where you are mentally at this point. What happened in your last fight? What did that leave you? And for me, I don't think Boots is in the most confident place right now. He was chasing big fights. Crawford, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman. All of those guys kept rejecting him, right? So he gets this fight with Chukazian, looks beatable. Immediately after the fight, he's in a place where his post-fight interview sounds like he's more or less apologizing for the victory. I don't think he's in the most confident place. He's in the last fight on his matchroom, 3-fight matchroom deal. There's pressure for him and Eddie Hearn for something special to be created here. I don't think he's in the best. Like, I'm not saying he's in shambles. He's not like where we might think Deontay Wilder is after all of those losses. But I think that right now, between him and Teofimo, I think Teofimo is probably in a better, more confident place. And I would give him the edge in intangibles. And so as we see, we split this, right? We said 3-3. So who do I think wins, and how do they win? I think this is a competitive, good fight. I think both guys go out there and I think Boots pushes the action. But I would say right now, I would give Teofimo the edge. I say Teofimo wins the fight by a split decision or a very narrow, unanimous decision. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it in the comments. If you have not yet liked this video and subscribe to the channel, please do that now. As always, I appreciate you. Peace.